Hello and welcome to the City of Good Sports podcast, episode 5. I'm your host, Richard Miller. Today's episode is primarily going to be an NFL one. We're going to devote a little bit of time at the end to talk about the Giannis trade speculation. But overall, it's been a huge week in the NFL, and especially a huge week for my Buffalo Bills. So that's what we're going to start off this episode talking about. So, classic Josh Allen game, 22 of 28 in the air, 251 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, as well as 78 rushing yards and 1 game-breaking 40-yard rushing touchdown. This was an extremely good Josh performance, and it just reminds you that we are blessed to have a first ballot Hall of Famer as quarterback and one of the most talented quarterbacks to ever play the position. Today, he broke history yet again as becoming the first player in NFL history to have 3 seasons with 20 passing touchdowns and 10 rushing touchdowns. Just recently, he became the all-time rushing touchdowns leader as a quarterback in NFL history. So we need to get this guy a Super Bowl, and this is the year to do it. The AFC is wide open this year. The Chiefs have been regressing. Their downfall has been beautiful. The Ravens' downfall has been beautiful. There's a ton of parity this year, but the Buffalo Bills are still there, and they look good today, especially Josh Allen. Now, one thing I noticed specifically about Josh Allen this game is that he was getting the tight ends engaged. The Bengals defense is notoriously bad against tight ends, and Dawson Knox specifically exploited it. 93 receiving yards for Dawson Knox. It's been a while since there's been a big Dawson Knox game. Jackson Hawes was able to find the end zone, and he just has an uncanny ability to find the end zone. Okay, it's only 3 touchdowns. How many third-string tight ends have 3 touchdowns? And this is a guy that's primarily a blocker, but he still has more touchdowns than Tyrell Shavers, more than Dawson Knox, more than Ty Johnson, and someone that's extreme value at a 5th-round pick. I can think of a 5th-round pick that's a little bit more valuable, but we'll talk about him later, and that's not the position we need. Nonetheless, Jackson Hawes, absolute steal. And he's someone I would like to see on the team for a while. Speaking of guys that are good blockers, Tyrell Shavers has been a phenomenal blocker as a receiver, and he's really helped with the run game. The one guy who could have been a little bit better, he did have over 100 rushing yards, but 2 fumbles from James Cook. One that he went out on the pylon was ultimately ruled as our ball. The second one, he actually did fumble. The Bengals recovered. So James Cook is having an incredible season this year, but we're starting to notice a bit of a fumbling problem in recent weeks. So as long as he could clean that up, I think we should be good. But it's definitely worth noting. But let's get to the positives. Let's go back to Josh Allen. That throw to Khalil Shakir, that 11-yard scrambling throw, one of the most perfectly placed passes I've ever seen, and probably a top 5. And it's a high bar because if you look at Josh's highlight reel, there are some incredible throws in there. Maybe a top 5 touchdown throw of Josh Allen's career. He was just dotting up. It was beautiful to watch. For copyright reasons, I'm going to do a copyright infringement law, so I can't show you some of these things. But if you go back and watch that Josh Allen throw to Khalil Shakir, absolutely beautiful. Not many quarterbacks could get that throw into the window that he did, if any. And I will give credit to Shakir on this play. He absolutely routed up Demetrius Knight Jr. But then you had Geno Stone and Barrett Carter closing into what was essentially triple coverage. And that ball was just perfectly placed into the hands of Shakir. It's what you call teammates being in sync at the highest level. This entire offense was in sync because they were being led by Josh Allen. He was leading the squad the way an elite game-changing quarterback is supposed to. He was making plays left and right. This is the MVP. There's some games where we're like, where's the MVP at? You saw him today. Now let's get to the defense. Despite giving up 34 points, I'm extremely happy with the performance of this defense today because the star of this game, along with Josh Allen, but honestly, more so than Josh Allen for the second week in a row, is Christian Benford. And I think on Christmas Day, you're going to see a lot of kids opening up presents and getting 47 jerseys. Christian Benford, a 63-yard pick six to take the lead 32-28 and change the momentum of the game, along with an 8-yard sack. Christian Benford is one of the best blitzing corners in the league. He might be the best blitzing corner in the league. And as far as the past 2 weeks go, he's been the best corner in the NFL. He was the AFC Defensive Player of the Week last week, and he surely will be this week. If he's not, I'm rioting, because he has been the best defensive player in the AFC for the past 2 weeks. Let's listen to these stats. Over the past 2 weeks, 1 catch for 2 yards allowed, 2 interceptions, including a pick six, 1 fumble return touchdown, and 1 sack. As far as last week goes, these are his AWS Next Gen stats. Benford allowed 0 receptions on 3 targets over 35 coverage snaps. Jamar Chase was held to 5 catches for 52 yards. For Jamar Chase, those are terrible stats. Maybe if those were Keon Coleman, that's a big game. But for Jamar Chase, that's pretty silent. I remember questioning throughout the game, where is Jamar Chase? Because it seemed like T. Higgins was getting majority of the targets despite being concussed. But that was because Benford was locking up Jamar Chase. They have a superstar on their hands at corner, and he's one of the most underrated players in the league, because really nobody outside of Buffalo Bills fans really know how good Christian Benford really is. I wouldn't even say he's a household name at this point. People know the Pat Surtains. People know the Sauce Gardners. But Christian Benford, if he continues to play like this, he was already in the upper echelon of corners of the league. There is a chance that Christian Benford could be not only a multiple-time Pro Bowler, but a multiple-time All-Pro and one of the best corners of this decade. And I truly believe that. I really do. The defensive possession immediately after Benford's 63-yard pick six was an interception by A.J. Epinesa, which led to the Bills' drive that ended in the Hawes touchdown, which essentially sealed the game for Buffalo, which, secured the W. Epinesa's been playing well too. He's not the elite pass rusher that, a lot of defensive ends in the league are. That's not really what he is, but Epinesa's been a very impactful player for us. Beyond Benford and Epinesa, I want to talk about the run defense for the Bills. Last week, I mentioned that the Bills held the Steelers to under 60 rushing yards, which was the first time all season that this happened. This game, they only held the Bengals to 62 rushing yards on 3.28 yards per carry. And over the past 4 weeks, the Bills have allowed an explosive play rate on rushing plays of only 2.0, which is the 4th best in the NFL. If you told me that the Bills' rushing defense would play this well at any stretch of the season, when you saw how poorly they started at the beginning of the season, I wouldn't believe you. And a huge reason for this, and I hate to say it because I love the guy at one point, but it is Terrell Bernard being hurt and Shaq Thompson starting in his place. Shaq Thompson played every defensive snap of that Bengals game, and he had 6 tackles, including 1 tackle for loss. And if you look at the highlight reel, he looks incredible. He's getting by linemen where if it were Bernard, he would just get pushed out of the way, because Bernard is undersized. He just is. He's small. And a lot of the reason as to why the Bills' rushing defense has been so bad is because we have these undersized linebackers. Now, Shaq Thompson comes in. This is his first year with the Bills. It seems like he should have been a Bill a while ago, because everything about him screams Bill, okay? This is a guy that was a lifelong Carolina Panther since 2015. His first year was the 15-1 season. So he's played with McDermott. He's played with the Panthers. We've seen the Bills bring all these Panthers guys in. I could list all of them, but it would take the whole video. But Shaq Thompson is the one guy that was from those McDermott Panthers that the Bills hadn't brought in yet. he was still an active player. And since he started, he's been incredible in this rushing defense. He's only 31. He seems older. He's 31, which is the same age as Milano. But my point being is when the Bills have a bulkier guy that can actually help stop the run, you see how much better their defense is because it unlocks a whole other aspect. Yeah, they gave up 34 points this game. Less than ideal, but Burrow's on a mission. The Bengals are clearly on a mission. Not every team is going to have Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow had 2 interceptions. But if Benford is playing like an all-pro at corner, if Cole Bishop continues to break out in the secondary, and we actually have linebackers that could stop the run, it's a good enough defense to win the Bills a Super Bowl because guess what? We have the best quarterback of all. I was about to say something so blasphemous. We have one of the best quarterbacks of all time on the offense. A number 1 receiver would help a lot too. But just having linebackers that aren't 190 pounds is a recipe to success. Who would have thought that? You know? And I like Bernard. I think Bernard is a great coverage linebacker. But I think it might be time to move on from him. And I think it is time to move on from Milano because Milano's 31. He's a coverage linebacker and he's always hurt. So I wouldn't mind to see them draft a linebacker, maybe like a Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech. This is something I'll cover more as the draft cycle starts to approach. But Shaq Thompson might be an everyday starter. Shaq Thompson has shown enough to me to the point where I'm like, I think I want him playing majority of the snaps, regardless of who's out there with him. They normally run a 2 linebacker scheme. So they have guys to alternate with. They have Dorian Williams, they have Matt Milano, they have Terrell Bernard when they're all healthy. But I would like to see Shaq Thompson playing over 50% of the snaps, even at 31 years old, because he makes such a difference in the run game. Deion Walker's another guy just having that big body on the defensive line. It helps the run defense so much. The Bills just were so undersized on defense for so long that we forgot the recipe to having a good run defense oftentimes is just size, being able to battle in the trenches with the offensive linemen. These are guys that are 6'8", 300 pounds. You can't bring, guys that are 6 feet, 190 and expect them to compete with them and expect them to stop the run because they create the gaps, which allows teams to run for 200 yards a game. It's that simple. It's not even, there's a lot of technical football things that go into everything. But sometimes size does matter. Pause. So now next week is the test. We play the Patriots. The Bills have been playing some of the best football of the season in the past 2 weeks, but can they play it against one of the best teams in the league? I mean, Christian Benford looked good against Jamar Chase and DK Metcalf, so you would expect him to shut down Stephon Diggs, but we know that when Diggs plays the Bills, he tends to perform at a higher level. The Patriots are coming off their bye week, so we don't have last week of film to really evaluate them, but the Bills know how the Patriots play at this point. They've seen enough of this year. They've probably studied them enough in the film room and have another week to do so, to the point where we should come out guns blazing. We should come for their heads. This is a division rival, and they think that they could take the AFC East from us all of a sudden. And that just means, since they're having a better statistical year than us, have a better record, that somehow that means that they're better than the Buffalo Bills and can beat them in the end of the year, in the most important stretch of football. This is the most important stretch right now till playoff time. You had the first half of the year to goof off, to make your mistakes. There is no room for error now. You need to come for the New England Patriots' heads. Let's see that run defense. Let's see how they perform against the Patriots. Let's see if Bishop and Benford and Hairston and these guys could play at an elite level. Because Drake May is certainly playing at an elite level. He certainly wants to beat the Bills. Mike Vrabel certainly wants to beat the Bills. The New England Patriots as an organization, as a fan base, certainly want to beat the Bills. Show them the Buffalo Bills are the better team. Show them who runs the AFC East in the 2020s, and that is our time now. We've waited too long. You can't just come back in your first year of being good again post-Brady and automatically be better than us, because you're not better than us. Well, now that we've talked about the Bills, let's go around and talk about the overall landscape of the AFC and the NFL as a whole. We've talked about the parity of this year, how weird this year is. But the most exciting part of everything has been the downfall of the Kansas City Chiefs. They're now under 500. They're now 6-7. And I feel like we're just getting closer and closer to that graphic where the Kansas City Chiefs have been eliminated from playoff contention. This past game, Mahomes, 3 interceptions, including the last one, which wasn't his fault, but it was bobbled off the hands of Kelsey. And I just couldn't stop smiling. This is just so beautiful. I love watching it. They had to face that Texans defense, and I'm a little bit scared of that Texans defense. We saw what they did to us. It's concerning. But on the topic of Texans defense, who do they play next week? The Colts. And who is their quarterback? I don't know, because Daniel Jones just suffered a major Achilles injury. And I honestly feel for the Indianapolis sports fans to have Tyrese Halliburton suffer that Achilles in Game 7 of the finals, and now in what was supposed to be an amazing year for the Colts has now completely flipped outside its head. They were once the number 1 seed, and now they are outside of the playoff picture. And their starting quarterback, their guy who has been on a revenge tour all year, is now out with an Achilles injury. And guess who they signed to the practice squad? A 44-year-old Phillip Rivers. Facing that Texans pass rush, he might have to call AARP after the game. He might have some hernia problems. Why? You couldn't get, how bad does Anthony Richardson have to be? I get he has his eye injury. Riley Leonard is suffering with injuries as well. So there's a good chance we'll have a 44-year-old Phillip Rivers starting against the Texans defense. Man, he needs to hand it off every play. Just have Jonathan Taylor run it every play. Phillip Rivers against the Texans defense is kind of like you're in a dogfight and you bring Herbert's dog from Family Guy that has the wheelchairs on the back legs, and you're expecting him to compete. Or forget Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. Imagine current Mike Tyson going against Bud Crawford in the ring. That's what this feels like. These young quarterbacks in free agency can't be that bad. Anthony Richardson can't be that bad. He can't be that. His eye problem can't be that bad. Where's Matt Corral at? Where's I don't know, Bailey Zappi? Get someone. Tyler Huntley. Don't bring in a 44-year-old Phillip Rivers. Where's Cam Newton at? We give that grace. We give that grace to the grandpas. Hey, you might need to dust off those cleats, Cam. I don't know. I don't know if they want to turn him into a vegetable or what, but I honestly am to the point where I'm a non-believer in the Indianapolis Colts. I don't think they'll make the playoffs even. As far as the AFC South goes, I am a little more scared of the Texans than I am of the Jaguars. Not to discount the Jaguars, because when I was giving that stat of the explosive plays percentage on run defense, how the Bills were 4th in the league, Jaguars are 1st in the league. Their defense is playing at, quite frankly, an elite level. Devin Lloyd is having a phenomenal season. Trevor Lawrence, who I'm pretty low on, as far as the consensus goes, I'm a little bit lower than the consensus. But he's steadily improving, and he's playing the best he has since his 2nd year. And Liam Cohen, even though everyone was clowning him before the year about his Duval, he looks like a great coach. And this is the best the Jaguars have looked since that AFC Championship year, since that Blake Bortles year. But there's still something about them that I just I can't buy into it just yet. And I really think the Bills should be able to beat them in the playoffs if we were to play the Jaguars in the playoffs. AFC North. Let's talk about that division. The Steelers and the Ravens had a game for the division last week, and the Ravens lost. Ravens have not been looking that great. As exciting as the Chiefs' downfall has been to watch, it's been not equally exciting. The Chiefs' downfall has been way more fun to watch, but the Ravens' downfall has been quite an experience too. But you've seen off years from them. I do think this is an off year. I think they could get back. I think they have the pieces to get back. And I think they could still win the division. They're only one game off. That loss to Steelers was huge. I would rather play the Steelers, but I trust the Bills to beat both the Steelers or the Ravens if we were to play them in the playoffs. I think there's a good chance that one of those will be the 4-5 matchup. The Bengals are pretty close to mathematically eliminated at this point. They pretty much had to win out, so that loss to the Bills hurt. So I don't expect to see them, but they're honestly playing better than both the Steelers and the Ravens as of right now. AFC West. Chiefs, I'm still waiting on that graphic. I hope it comes. I hope I don't have to eat my words, but it's been beautiful. It's been beautiful. The Broncos, on the other hand, one of the best teams in the NFL. And they play the Packers next week, which is, by most metrics, the two best defenses in the NFL, just by how I see it in my personal eye test. I think the Packers and the Broncos are the two best defenses in the NFL, with the Broncos being number one. So that should be exciting to watch. If we are to play the Broncos, we played the Broncos last year in the playoffs. We know them, but this defense is even better. They added Hufanga, they added Jade Barron, and they have one more year of experience and they're playing at an even higher level. So what we need to do is play at our pace. Josh Allen, I trust him. I trust him to exploit the defense. Josh Allen could exploit any defense. He's that talented of a player. If we get into a shootout with the Denver Broncos, I trust us to win. If it's one of those games that's low scoring, that's like a 10-3 game, that will be the way that the Broncos would beat us. I don't have a game of Bills versus Broncos this year where I can really evaluate it, but I still believe there's something to having an elite quarterback, and I don't believe Bo Nix is an elite quarterback. I've said it time and time again. I feel like he has a ceiling. If we could shut down the run game, RJ Harvey's having pretty good rookie year, but he's not an elite running back, at least not yet. So we have to establish a scoring game against them. The Chargers look good against the Eagles, but the major weakness with the Chargers is they're on their backup offensive line. You need to pressure Justin Herbert. This is one of the weakest parts of the Bills as a team. One of the weakest elements of their roster and roster construction as a whole is they don't have an established pass rush. But when you're playing that backup Chargers offensive line, you need to get to Justin Herbert. You need to pressure the quarterback. I need blitzes. Even if it's a cornerback blitz, have Benford come in. I need, Greg Rousseau to be that elite pass rusher that we see in some games. It's certainly not consistent. AJ Epinesa, his strength really isn't as a pass rusher. Maybe we could get some vintage Bosa against his former team. The key to beating the Chargers is really just pressuring Justin Herbert. Joel is out for the year. Rashawn Slater's out for the year. We need to make sure that Herbert is still an if quarterback and not a when quarterback. Once him beating the Bills would be too much of a high, where if he fumbles that, I don't know. I don't know how you could fumble that and not go to the Super Bowl. Now let's talk about some of the rest of the league. I talked about the Chargers. They played the Eagles. 4 interceptions, career high for Jalen Hurts. He was given the green light in this game, and it goes to show you that the Eagles need to play within that system. You can't give Jalen Hurts too much of a green light. I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback. I really just don't. He has obvious limitations. He has won a Super Bowl. You can never take that against him. But you can't just let him air it out like that. Letting Jalen Hurts have 40 passing attempts in a game when he's already having an interception problem is like letting Westbrook shoot 10 threes in a game. You know, Jalen Hurts is really a guy that's at his best when he has around like 25 passing attempts a game. You need to establish Saquon Barkley. And you need to, if A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are hot, that's when you let him continue. But you can't just give Jalen Hurts a full green light, let him have full control over your offense. That's not a recipe to winning. So it's for that reason, and I like Jalen Hurts. I'm not necessarily a Jalen Hurts hater, but I think he tends to be a little overrated by Eagles fans, if that makes sense. I think, resume speaking, you can't have him outside of the top 10, but he's certainly not on the level of a Josh Allen, even though they're having off years, of a Lamar Jackson or a Patrick Mahomes or a Joe Burrow. I don't even think he's better than a Drake May or Justin Herbert. Even what we saw from Jaden Daniels his rookie year, that's another thing I have to address, Jaden Daniels. But Jalen Hurts has a ceiling, okay? He really does. He won a Super Bowl, and that's perfect. But he really shouldn't be throwing 40 times a game. So this next segment is something I'm going to call coaching malpractice. And I'm going to talk about 2 of my favorite non-Bills quarterbacks, which are Jaden Daniels and Shedeur Sanders. So this is my Jaden Daniels segment. I don't want him to be a what-if story. I really don't. I don't want him to be an RG3 or a Derrick Rose. You saw how he played against the Lions in that game. You saw him have one of the best rookie seasons of any quarterback in NFL history. And then this year, he's just been taking hit after hit. And this is the thing people were most concerned about when he entered the NFL. And after you saw what happened, where his elbow completely turned outwards like that, he should have never played another game this season. They were 3-9. The fact that Dan Quinn started him against the Vikings, which led to pretty much what everyone saw coming, him getting injured again, is complete coaching malpractice. And it's to a point where I'm starting to think Washington might just be a cursed organization because this just keeps happening. It happened with Joe Theismann, happened with RG3, it happened with Alex Smith. And I really don't want to happen with Jaden Daniels. He's already suffered some pretty bad injuries. Let him have the rest of the year off. Let Mariota play the rest of the games. I'm begging you. You need a high pick. You don't have a good enough team to really compete even with a prime Jaden Daniels. You saw what happened. He overperformed and they made it to the NFC Championship. But you saw that there were obvious holes in that defense. You saw that there are obvious weaknesses in that team. So let them get the high pick. Let them draft well. And let's make sure Jaden Daniels is healthy so that we could develop him into the superstar quarterback, which you know he could be. He looked like a superstar quarterback in his rookie season. The reason he's looked bad this year, and I'm not even saying that he's been bad, but he's just been hobbled. He's barely been at full strength in any game. That was just terrible. He should have never been sent out there against the Vikings. It's the same thing with and the Vikings defense this year is certainly not on the level of the Texans, but they still have some dogs on that defense. Brian Flores is still a DC, and you have a clearly injured Jaden Daniels, and you're not competing for anything. Why send him out there? There's no reason for you to do so. Part 2 of my coaching malpractice, Kevin Stefanski. Oh, where do I start with this one? I don't know that I've ever been more annoyed with a head coach that wasn't the head coach of my team ever. Like, why am I hating a coach this much and the Browns aren't even my team? I've never been a Cleveland Browns fan. Every time I see a Quinshon Judkins direct snap, I want to inject Clorox into my veins because it never works, and he continues to do it. And then he did it with the game on the line during a 2-point conversion where he took his quarterback, who just had an amazing touchdown throw to Fannin the play before and had 364 yards. You took him out of the game and did this same exact direct snap play that you've done probably 15 times in the last 3 weeks that hasn't worked once. And it was the worst direct snap yet. They probably lost like 20 yards on that play. It's bad enough that Shedeur Sanders was already colluded against by the entire NFL. The fact that he dropped to a 5th round pick is one of the biggest travesties in the history of football. But now he's being colluded against his own coach. And at first people were like, oh, it's a conspiracy. Oh, it's a conspiracy. It's clearly not. You have one of the most talented rookie classes ever. You finally have a franchise quarterback, which franchise quarterback for the Cleveland Browns doesn't even sound right. You've seen those jerseys. There's probably like 80 names on there. You wasted your fans' time by starting Dylan Gabriel all those games. And now you don't even let Shedeur play the last snap of the game with the game on the line. And the Browns are so close. They're so close to being a good team. They really are. They have one of the best rookie classes ever. Carson Schlesinger, front runner for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Harold Fannin. Let's talk about Harold Fannin. Absolute dog. And this was a guy who people completely overthought about. The production was there, the stats was there, the tape was there, but people got all into these measurables, all into this all 22 footage, and oh, he's too slow to play tight end. Oh, his arms are too short. He's not as good of a blocker as some of these other guys. He looks like he's going to be a superstar. He's looking like he's going to be one of the best tight ends in the NFL. It was impossible to watch that Browns versus Titans game and not see that Harold Fannin Jr. is the truth. I never bought into the hate of Harold Fannin. The fact that he fell as low as he did, I believe he was the 67th pick. I had a first-round grade on him. I did. I had Tyler Warren as tight end 1. I still feel pretty justified in that. But between him and Loveland, I was debating, and it's looking like he might be better than Colston Loveland. But falling to this 67th pick is nothing on Shedeur Sanders falling to the 5th round. This is a guy that's looked like QB1. He outplayed the QB1 in Cam Ward. Cam Ward's in a terrible situation, by the way. I still think it's unfair to grade him based on his performance with the Titans because he has nobody, not a single competent receiver on that entire roster. But Shedeur Sanders has looked like the best quarterback of this class. 364 yards. This was his breakout game. And you threw a direct snap to Quinshon Judkins with the game on the line. I can't wait to watch the Browns next year when they have a new head coach. Hopefully they don't draft a quarterback because I could see them doing that. I could see them spending a first-round pick on like Ty Simpson or something, just wasting a pick away once again. But they drafted really well last year. The position players they've had, and Judkins, the direct snaps aren't working, but Judkins is a damn good running back. Dylan Sampson's a pretty good running back too. So they drafted 2 good running backs. They drafted a good tight end. They drafted a game-changing linebacker and arguably the best quarterback in the class. So I trust their scouting team They just have to not draft a quarterback in the first couple rounds. It's that simple. You have guys. You have Arvell Reese. You have Carnell Tate. Think of the Browns with a Carnell Tate, with a true number one receiver. I want the Bills to get a number one receiver too, but they're a little later. They're in like lemon range. But like a Carnell Tate, even like a Caleb Downs, having a game-changing safety like that, in addition to your great defense, in addition to the runaway DPOI and Myles Garrett, there are things to be hopeful about as a Cleveland Browns fan. But it starts in the after Stefanski era. Stefanski is holding that team back. I believe in the Browns. It sounds crazy to say that. I believe in the Browns. I believe in Shedeur. But you have to get rid of that head coach. You just have to. And his own collusion, whatever hatred he has towards Sanders, whichever bias he has. And by the way, Dylan Gabriel and his wife and what they're doing, that's bad to the locker room too. Like, all these people think that Shedeur is the locker room problem, and it's everyone but him, because he's carried himself with so much grace. Yeah, he's confident. Who wouldn't want their star quarterback to be confident? You don't want a quarterback out there with self-esteem issues. Oh, I threw an interception. Oh. Like, you're really going to shame the kid for being confident? His dad is Deion Sanders, for Christ's sake. Maybe that's why they didn't want him. But Deion hasn't been involved. He hasn't been, if anything, he hasn't spoken out about Shedeur's situation more. So I don't know what happened there, but the Browns lucked into a franchise quarterback with a 5th pick and were able to draft extremely well with all their other picks, except for that one 3rd-round pick they spent on the Oregon QB. So they could be scary. And I can't believe I'm saying that about the Browns, but they really could. I believe that's all I have to say about the NFL, but there's just a lot of overthinking in the draft cycle in general. Like, even Scadaboo should have never fell as low as he did. You saw the production. Sometimes the production and the stats speak for themselves. You don't have to look for these advanced stats and these measurements and these reasons to not like guys that obviously could ball. There's sometimes people just overthink about it. Sometimes they're right, because sometimes these players do end up being busts, but more often than not, the tape speaks for itself. And I don't know what happened with Shedeur, but I'm definitely excited in his journey. Now let's talk about the NBA. So the overarching NBA news has been the Giannis trade rumors. So a little less than a week ago, there was a huge media push that Giannis wanted out of Milwaukee. You saw Shams reporting it, you saw Brian Windhorst reporting it, and you saw all the potential trade rumors about it, whether it be to the Spurs, to the Knicks, to the Thunder, to the Rockets. Everyone in the NBA wants in on Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's died down a little bit, because there is a slight element of fishiness. There's a mix of fishiness and truth. Giannis did actually meet with the Bucks front office to talk about the direction of the future of the team. The Bucks have done a bad job of building a team around Giannis post that 2021 finals run. That being said, they have found developmental pieces. Ryan Rollins is someone who I'm very interested in the development of. But does Giannis really want to wait around for the development of these guys? We really don't know. So he has been dealing with injuries all year. There were a lot of people that said he faked the injury because he got injured on the day of all the trade noise in his game against the Pistons. Come to find out, it's probably a legitimate injury. But this window of the injury is the Bucks' opportunity to prove that they have a good enough team to win games without Giannis, and a good enough squad to the point where Giannis feels like he could compete at least to win the East. I think they really have very low championship odds. The fact that Doc Rivers is their coach doesn't help much. One team that you have to feel pretty bad about this entire situation is New York, because they sent all those picks for Mikal Bridges, and I said it at the time when they made that trade. Why would they send that many picks for Mikal Bridges when Giannis is still a possibility? Now, a lot of the people within the Bucks organization have shut down the Giannis trade talks. Has Giannis himself come out and said, no, I don't want to be traded. Oh, I want to stay with the Bucks forever? He hasn't. But this has been something the media has done for the past couple of years. They want to get Giannis out of Milwaukee. It's a very clear agenda that they have. So this will be interesting to follow in the next couple of weeks. I do think there's a possibility Giannis gets traded by the deadline, but there's an equal possibility that Giannis plays out the rest of the year with the Milwaukee Bucks. They've had disappointing playoff exits in the last couple of years. They haven't looked anywhere close to the team they were. Come to find out, Giannis may have liked Damian Lillard. There was a lot of people that speculated that Giannis wanted Lillard out and that he wanted Miles Turner and that he's kind of playing a GM role similar to what we've seen from LeBron. But you can't trust everything the media says, even if it's from a verifiable source like Shams Charania, who often reports accurate NBA news. Because there is just this overwhelming media push to get Giannis off of the Bucks. The one thing I would hate to see happen, and this is someone who is a Bucks fan, who Giannis has been my favorite player for the last decade or so. I would hate to see him go to the OKC Thunder just because I feel like that would break basketball. The Spurs would break basketball, but it would be fun. Giannis and Wemby together, like that's kind of like the modern day Ralph Sampson and Hakeem Olajuwon. I just think it would break basketball. But there's a chance, with injuries, there's always a chance someone could sneak in there. I think New York would have been the most ethical possibility, but as we mentioned, they lost a lot of their draft capital in the Mikal Bridges trade. So as far as trade destinations, we still have yet to see. Maybe even the Pistons could throw in a package for him. But then with the Pistons, you have concerns about their spacing. They've brought Duncan Robinson in to essentially play the Malik Beasley role. And he's done well at that. But, are they going to give up Asar and Duren? Because a core of Cade, Asar, Duren, and Giannis cannot shoot whatsoever. But I would assume at least one of Duren or Asar would be in the Giannis trade. Do the Rockets throw out a package for him? There are all these questions about it, but it really just comes down to, and this injury, in a way, is a test because it shows, do the Bucks really feel that they compete? Who is going to step up and be the guy for the Bucks with Giannis out? Is it going to be Rollins? Is it going to be Kevin Porter Jr.? Is Miles Turner going to play better? You have all these questions. Anthony Davis is another guy who's likely to get traded, and his trade value is nowhere near where Giannis's is. I doubt there's even many teams that are vying for Anthony Davis like that. And there's some guys who have been elite talents in the NBA that have just extremely low trade value right now. Trae Young is one of them. John Morant's another one of them. LaMelo Ball's another one of them. So until these trades happen, until we get to February and the trade deadline, this will be something we're kind of keeping up with through the majority of the season. In non-trade news, there have been some really great performances of recently. Specifically, I'm a huge fan of this guy, Derek Queen on the Pelicans. He just had a 30-point triple-double with 4 blocks. And they found something there. The Pelicans are a team that's been riddled with injuries, but they have so many talented players. And it's like, I just think they're better than what the record shows. Maybe because they've drafted well. That's the thing, too. They just haven't built a roster that's been healthy and has stayed together. the OKC Thunder, Shea's playing at a historic pace right now. He's shooting 44% from three. I had an argument with my friend, is he peaking higher than 2016 Curry? And the sad part about that is it's not even ridiculous to say that. The Thunder only have one loss on the year. And it's hard to see them not repeating, at least where the NBA currently is. I think the best bet to beat them might be a team like Denver. But it's really hard for me to see anyone but OKC repeating. And it's why my interest in basketball this year hasn't been at its highest, because of not only the situation with Giannis and the Bucks, which has been my team for the past decade, but also just the fact that the OKC Thunder have become this new dynasty. And they're almost annoying in a way because they just hack, they foul nonstop, and they're just unbeatable. And even when Shea's out, it doesn't matter who's injured, they just have hordes of guys that they can bring in and they'll still win and they'll still have insane production. And kind of the way the OKC Thunder are breaking basketball, another really annoying news story just came out of the baseball world that Edwin Diaz, the star reliever from the Mets, just signed with the Dodgers. So do I really want to get into that? Not really. It's annoying. I think Dylan Cease signing to the Blue Jays. Dylan Cease, one of the strikeout leaders over the past couple of years. That's exciting. I still love my Blue Jays odds, but man, losing the Dodgers and then having them sign Edwin Diaz, Dodgers being the team that won the last 2 World Series, and then there's still all these Japanese free agents on the market, and the lack of cap space, or the fact that there's no hard cap in the MLB, it just makes everything a little bit more annoying because you have these big market teams like the Dodgers that can just come in and break the MLB. So the Pacers and the Blue Jays last year kind of had similar runs, and I don't like the Pacers. I wasn't a huge fan of the Pacers because 1, I was a Bucks fan, but 2, I was also kind of invested in New York. And they killed both of them. But now they're having their off year, and the Thunder are right back to where they're at. Blue Jays lost in Game 7. We'll see if they return, but I'm almost positive the Dodgers will still be where they're at. I assume they're coming out of the National League. Maybe the Phillies could stop them, but I don't know. While the NFL is starting to go into its parity era and the Chiefs dynasty is ending, the Dodgers and Thunder are emerging as the dynasties of their respective leagues. So just seems like there's always going to be a dynasty. You know, you could have parity in one sport, but it seemed like there's going to be parity in NBA. Once the Warriors dynasty ended, we've had different champions every year. I think we might get a repeat one again. So, you know, it's hard to have parity every year in every sports league because there are just some teams that have built their roster and built their system to be so good. Like, they've just established such a winning culture. But I'm still going to be invested in the NBA and MLB regardless, because guess what? There's a chance it's not the Thunder. There's a chance it's not the Dodgers, and that's what we'll be keeping up with on the City of Good Sports. But one thing I'm pretty positive of is it's not going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. So if the Buffalo Bills win a Super Bowl, none of this even matters because that's what's most important at the end of the day. That concludes episode 5 of the City of Good Sports podcast. Make sure to tune in next Tuesday. Be good, do good. God bless. Go Bills.